ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਇਲੈਕਸ਼ਨਸ 2021 ਤੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਦੇਖ ਰਹੇ ਹੋ ਇਲੈਕਸ਼ਨ ਡਨ ਸ਼ੇਰ-ਏ-ਪੰਜਾਬ ਰੇਡੀਓ ਤੇ।
ਸਵਾਲ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ,
ਸ਼ਬਦ ਸਾਡੇ,
ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਕਹਾਣੀ
ਸਾਡੀ ਜ਼ੁਬਾਨੀ,
ਤਰਕ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ, ਜਜ਼ਬਾਤ ਦੀ ਕਦਰ, ਹਰ ਘਟਨਾ, ਹਰ ਵਿਸ਼ੇ ਤੇ ਪੈਣੀ ਨਜ਼ਰ।
ਨਾ ਝੁਕਦੇ ਹਾਂ,
ਨਾ ਲਿਖਦੇ ਹਾਂ,
ਨਾ ਦੱਬਦੇ ਹਾਂ,
ਨਾ ਵਿਕਦੇ ਹਾਂ, ਹਰ ਮੁੱਦੇ ਦੀ ਜੜ ਤੱਕ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਮਾਰ।
ਦਿਨ ਹੋਵੇ ਜਾਂ ਰਾਤ, ਹਰ ਵੇਲੇ ਤਿਆਰ। ਬੁਲੰਦ ਸੀ,
ਬੁਲੰਦ ਹੈ,
ਬੁਲੰਦ ਰਹੇਗੀ।
ਸੱਚ ਦੀ ਦਹਾੜ। ਸ਼ੇਰ-ਏ-ਪੰਜਾਬ ਜ਼ਿੰਦਾਬਾਦ।
ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਇਲੈਕਸ਼ਨਸ 2021 ਤੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਦੇਖ ਰਹੇ ਹੋ ਇਲੈਕਸ਼ਨ ਡਨ ਸ਼ੇਰ-ਏ-ਪੰਜਾਬ ਰੇਡੀਓ ਤੇ।
ਸਵਾਲ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ,
ਸ਼ਬਦ ਸਾਡੇ,
ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਕਹਾਣੀ
ਸਾਡੀ ਜ਼ੁਬਾਨੀ,
ਤਰਕ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ, ਜਜ਼ਬਾਤ ਦੀ ਕਦਰ, ਹਰ ਘਟਨਾ, ਹਰ ਵਿਸ਼ੇ ਤੇ ਪੈਣੀ ਨਜ਼ਰ।
ਨਾ ਝੁਕਦੇ
CKSP 600 AM ਸ਼ੇਰ-ਏ-ਪੰਜਾਬ ਰੇਡੀਓ ਸੁਣਨ ਵਾਲੇ ਸਾਰੇ ਸਰੋਤਿਆਂ ਦਾ ਮੈਂ ਸਮੀਰ ਕੌਸ਼ਲ ਇੱਕ ਵਾਰ ਫਿਰ ਤੋਂ ਨਿੱਘਾ ਸਵਾਗਤ ਕਰਦਾ। ਔਰ ਜਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਸਵੇਰ ਤੋਂ ਹੀ ਇਲੈਕਸ਼ਨ ਡਨ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ, ਔਰ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਲੋਕ ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਇਸ ਵੇਲੇ ਜੁੜੇ ਨੇ ਫੇਸਬੁੱਕ ਤੇ ਜਾਂ ਰੇਡੀਓ ਤੇ 600 AM ਤੇ ਜਾਂ ਸਾਡੇ ਐਪ ਦੇ ਜ਼ਰੀਏ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਦੱਸ ਦਈਏ ਕਿ ਇਲੈਕਸ਼ਨ ਡਨ ਚੱਲ ਰਿਹਾ ਅੱਜ ਪੂਰਾ ਦਿਨ। ਇਸੇ ਤਰੀਕੇ ਨਾਲ ਅਸੀਂ ਵੱਖੋ ਵੱਖਰੀਆਂ ਪਾਰਟੀਆਂ ਦੇ ਵੱਖੋ ਵੱਖਰੇ ਉਮੀਦਵਾਰਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਅਸੀਂ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਦੇ ਰਹਾਂਗੇ। ਅਸੀਂ ਸਾਰੇ ਤੱਕ ਅਪਰੋਚ ਕੀਤੀ ਔਰ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਉਮੀਦਵਾਰਾਂ ਨੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਨ ਦੀ ਹਾਮੀ ਭਰੀ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਅਸੀਂ ਆਪਣੇ ਇਸ ਪਲੇਟਫਾਰਮ 'ਤੇ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਆਏ ਔਰ ਸਭ ਨੂੰ ਬਰਾਬਰ ਦਾ ਸਮਾਂ ਦੇਣ ਦੀ ਕੋਸ਼ਿਸ਼ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ, ਜਿਹੜਾ ਸਮਾਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਬੁੱਕ ਕੀਤਾ ਗਿਆ। ਔਰ ਹੁਣ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਉਮੀਦਵਾਰ ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਜੁੜਨਗੇ ਉਹ ਨੇ ਕੰਜ਼ਰਵੇਟਿਵ ਪਾਰਟੀ ਤੋਂ ਉਮੀਦਵਾਰ ਨੇ ਮਿਸ਼ਨ ਮੈਟਸਕੁਈ ਫਰੇਜ਼ਰ ਕੈਨੀਅਨ ਤੋਂ ਮਿਸਟਰ ਬ੍ਰੈਡਵਿਸ, ਜੋ ਕਿ ਇਨਕੰਬੈਂਟ ਨੇ। ਔਰ ਨਾਲ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਇਹ ਵੀ ਦੱਸਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਕਿ ਬ੍ਰੈਡਵਿਸ ਕੈਨੇਡੀਅਨ ਪੋਲੀਟੀਸ਼ੀਅਨ ਨੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਇਲੈਕਟ ਹੋਏ ਸੀ ਇਸੇ ਰਾਈਡਿੰਗ ਤੋਂ, ਜਿਹੜੀ ਕਿ ਮਿਸ਼ਨ ਮੈਟਸਕੁਈ ਫਰੇਜ਼ਰ ਕੈਨੀਅਨ ਹੈ। ਹਾਊਸ ਆਫ ਕਾਮਨਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ 2019 ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਦੀਆਂ ਫੈਡਰਲ ਇਲੈਕਸ਼ਨਸ ਹੋਈਆਂ ਸੀ। ਔਰ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਕੋਲ ਬੈਚਲਰ ਡਿਗਰੀ ਹੈ ਪੋਲੀਟੀਕਲ ਸਾਇੰਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਫਰੋਮ UBC ਔਰ ਮਾਸਟਰਸ ਡਿਗਰੀ ਹੈ ਪੋਲੀਟੀਕਲ ਸਾਇੰਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਕਾਰਲਟਨ ਤੋਂ। Good morning, or I should say good afternoon, Brad.
Samir, it's so great to be on the radio with you today. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I like your smile, actually.
I like yours
Brad,
too, brother.
Thank you so much, bro. Brad, I would like to know, as a political science student, how would you rate the last 6-year political atmosphere in Canada?
Well, I can only speak for my own riding. And right now in Mission Matskwe Fraser Canyon, people are angry. They're angry this election was called because in the Fraser Canyon, the village of Lytton and much of Lytton First Nation burned to the ground on June 29th. So right before the election was called, all through the summer, I was working on getting funding packages ready with the village and Lytton First Nation to support them in their recovery. And when the election was called, all that work had to stop. So there's still hundreds of displaced people in my constituency, and they were not pleased the election was called.
But Mr. Justin Trudeau is claiming that it's going to be a choice for the Canadians to form a strong government. How would you react to that?
Well, Justin Trudeau had a functioning parliament that he was able to work with the opposition parties throughout the pandemic on some of the biggest spending bills ever put forward in the history of our country. All political parties said, we need to put the interest of Canada first. The only politician in this country who didn't put Canada first when we went into this last wave is Justin Trudeau, because he didn't want to work with Jagmeet Singh, who was backing his government anymore, and on many cases, the Conservative Party as well. This election was reckless, and for my riding in particular, it wasn't necessary. We need to be helping the people whose homes burned down first.
Definitely our heart goes out for, we can understand the pain of a resident of Lytton, how they have gone through this big tragedy. But on the other hand, when we are talking about the federal politics, it's election and it's a reality.
Yeah.
You have
Yeah.
to go for the elections. So what are some big challenges other than the climate change your riding is facing?
Yeah, housing affordability is number one. Many of my friends and neighbors in Abbotsford and Mission who grew up in the Fraser Valley, who followed all the rules, who went to university alongside me, and just given life circumstance, maybe they waited a little longer to start a family. It's hard for young people to own a home these days. In my neighborhood, prices have more than doubled in the last few years. So when you're a new nursing graduate or an engineer from UFE or SFU or UBC, and you're looking to start a family, it's harder and harder to do that in the Fraser Valley these days, especially. And the Conservative Party has recognized this, and we put forward a very comprehensive housing strategy because prices are just out of control for young people, especially.
But liberals are saying they are promising that there's going to be a tax on property flipping. Do you think that can help? And also, they're saying they're gonna go for 1.4 million homes.
Yeah, well, the Liberals can say they're really good at making announcements and they're very poor at delivering. I can remember in 2015, a house in my neighborhood was under $400,000. In the period of time the Liberals have been in power, that same house now is over $1 million. So how does a young professional and family person who just wants to have a secure and stable place to live make sense of those rapid increases? We've seen in British Columbia the German report on money laundering, lots of commissions from the provincial government outlining that there are many things the federal government can do. I am the only politician in British Columbia who is suggesting we do some of those things when I brought forward my housing motion in June, which the Liberals voted against. And now, once the election was called, they only copied my work in their housing platform, namely to finally take action on corruption and to ban foreign buyers, so new Canadians and young families actually have a reasonable shot at purchasing a home.
So if we are talking about the Conservatives' federal election promise or the platform, how that is integrated with your own constituency?
Yeah, well, my constituency is completely informed by the platform, and a big one that I haven't mentioned is the failed promise of the Liberals to address Indigenous housing. It was part of their original plan when they brought forward the national housing strategy, and they didn't move forward on that. So I represent a riding, and I'm running in a riding as a candidate with many, many Indigenous communities and different Indigenous cultures, and they've all said loud and clear that it's time for a for Indigenous and by Indigenous housing strategy, and the Conservative Party is committed to doing that. We also understand that we can use federal infrastructure dollars to incent municipalities that are very slow at giving permits to developers to use federal infrastructure dollars as a way to increase density and a way to increase the number of new homes that are being built. It's very, very clear that we must build more in Canada. Canada as a nation, compared to our G7 counterparts, is very slow at building homes, and we have to do better for our young people.
Brad, actually, I was going through some news today, and we just came to know that the inflation rate is high, 4.1% for August. So the economy is at a point of anxiety for many Canadians, especially as we are returning to the new normal of this pandemic. Uh, what are going to be your party's priorities, or as a member of parliament, what are going to be your priorities in this regard? Do you think that Canada is going in right direction as far as the economic recovery is concerned?
Under this government, no. And that's why one of the key platform commitments that the Conservative Party ran on is securing Canada's economy. We need to get our deficit spending under control, and we need to stop some of the practices that have emerged since COVID-19 started, and that namely quantitative easing or the Bank of Canada buying government debt back. With the low interest rates we have now, we're going to see inflation continue to rise until the government stops spending as much money as it is. So although the government says that every penny it spends is supporting people, the adverse effect of that is that there is an inflationary impact. It's like a hidden tax. And the people this impacts the most are the working people, the people that go and are making $25 an hour and they're on a fixed income. They're driving from Abbotsford to go work at a manufacturing facility in Surrey. These people are the ones that are suffering because that head of cauliflower to make their food is costing them a couple bucks more. Those jugs of milk that they buy to make yogurt are all costing them a few bucks more. Eggs, pork, it's all costing people more money. So the government of Canada needs to get a handle on its spending. We need to stop the quantitative easing so that our working class people, the ones that pay all the taxes, aren't losing money every month through government-caused inflation.
We have seen climate change, especially in the West region, and there was an IPCC report which says it's irreversible in some parts of the world. So Liberals pledge to keep the carbon tax, cap oil and gas emissions, and as well as they are saying that they're going to install thousands and thousands of electric vehicle chargers, and they are doing so good. What's your take on that? Do you think they are doing enough for the climate change?
Another promise that they made was to plant 1 billion trees, and I could not think of a riding more important than that than mine. And they failed to deliver. We didn't have any trees planted. We're still recovering from the 2017 fires in Mission-Matsqui Fraser Canyon, and if the government's not taking action with by addressing conservation and implementing natural climate change solutions, we're going to see more floods and the impacts of the hot temperatures and the fires that we had. So the Conservative Party and me as a local candidate is committed to making sure that we do natural climate change solutions to protect wild salmon, protect the Fraser River, and rebuild those valleys with forest management practices that were devastated in recent years.
Do you think you have to face a tough competition with the Liberal candidates now in your constituency this time?
You know what? I'm born and raised in Abbotsford. I've lived in Mission-Matsqui, Fraser Canyon my whole life. The Liberal candidate came from Surrey. She doesn't have the same types of connections that I do. But most importantly, since I've been elected, I've been a voice for all constituents. I've brought forward more petitions than any candidate in one of the highest number of petitions in all of British Columbia. I was one of the strongest voices in the country, if not the strongest, on the Indian farmer protests. People know that when they need to get a hold of Brad Viss is there. And the people that I've represented and the people that I live with are my constituents. And I've been around them my whole life. So I'm just going to continue seeking to earn their trust. In election, anyone can win. Lynn Perrin's also running a great campaign for the NDP. It's about earning the trust of voters, and that's ultimately their decision. But I'm very proud of what I've done so far, and I want to continue being an MP who's Mission-Matsqui Fraser Canyon's voice in Ottawa and not Ottawa's voice in Mission-Matsqui Fraser Canyon.
But when we're talking about the cost of living, on one side, government is spending the money to in the name of, just for the stability. But on the other hand, yes, we are adding some jobs, but as far as cost of living is concerned, Canada is at that point where people feel like that we don't have money in our bank and all the money is going to the mortgages and, different installments, maybe for car or for some other things. What do you think? Do you think it can be that there's going to be a balance in commoner's life?
Yeah, well, and we've tried to address this in our platform. We have new benefits for, like, I know with my Punjabi friends, it's very common to see 3 generations living in one household. So we've put forward tax credits and a new allowance for sons and daughters who take care of their parents to address some of those costs. Our platform commits to doubling the disability benefit from $750 to $1,500 per month, because Canadians living with a disability have had a very hard time accounting for the higher cost of living. And finally, for the working, for low-income workers, we want to increase the benefits for them by $2,800 a month, which results in about $1 an hour salary raise. We need to do more to support the people that are going to work every day, that are taking care of their loved ones and doing everything they can just to get ahead when they see that the system isn't always working with them.
And one more thing which I like to know, that we are going through so many polls, and most of the polls are saying till now there's not a clear picture if any party going to get a majority this time. So in that case, do you think Conservatives are going to join hand with any other party, or do you think there's going to be once again a coalition between NDP and Liberal? And if you think yes, there's going to be a coalition, do you think it's a justice with the taxpayer money?
Well, I think at the end of the day, the Canadian electorate is going to decide. And whatever parliament the Canadian electorate gives us, every member of parliament has a duty and responsibility to stand up for their constituents, to work across party lines, to do what's very best for our country. We cannot let partisan politics get in the way of making sure that there are stable jobs for Canadians, that people can afford a home to buy, that people feel secure in their communities, that we're doing everything we can to stop gang violence. We as a country are so blessed to have Canada, to have our country Canada, and we always must hold that honor in the People's House of Commons. So whatever the people decide to give us is what we need to do, because it's their choice ultimately, and we need to honor the people of Canada.
As far as the, when we're saying that government have done so much in getting the vaccines from different countries, and they have done brilliant work in dealing with pandemic, do you think the credit only should go to the Liberals, or do you think there are other parties, those who helped as well?
Well, listen, every day we were in Parliament asking for the government to move faster on acquiring vaccines. What's really scary about what happened in the last Parliament is that Justin Trudeau and the Liberals decided to sue Parliament for the very first time in the history of Canada. And they did that because secret information from our national laboratories was sent to China. This has never happened in the history of Canada before. It's also very naive of the Liberals that the first vaccine agreement they made was with the Chinese Communists, only for the Chinese Communists to pull out of the agreement with the government of Canada, take that information and go back to China without us acquiring any of the R&D. So the Liberals made a lot of mistakes. I'm very glad that Canadians have vaccines, but every day in Parliament, the opposition was challenging the government and asking them to be more transparent. And unfortunately, the government wasn't very transparent, be it how much money they were spending, when the vaccines were coming, on many, many fronts. So I believe that all opposition parties made sure that we got as much public information as possible. And that's our job. Our job is to challenge the government to make sure that they do better, especially at a critical time that we found ourselves in the last year.
What would you like to say to your constituents in the end?
That I'm Brad Viss. I'm always going to be reachable. My number is 604-302-9277. Serving you the last 20 months has been the honor of my professional career. And if you decide to trust me with your vote again, I'm going to continue honoring you by working hard on your behalf, by being accessible, by elevating all of the communities of this most incredible riding, the #1 riding in all of Canada. We are so blessed to live in Mission-Matsqui-Fraser Canyon, and I am so honored to be your candidate. And simply, I am seeking your trust. My record speaks for itself. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you so much, and wish you all the very best. And thank you once again.
Thank you, Samir. Happy to.
ਹਾਈ ਸੋ ਇਹ ਸਨ ਬ੍ਰੈਡ ਵੈਸਟ ਜੋ ਕਿ ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਸਨ, ਔਰ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਅਸੀਂ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਕੀਤੀ ਹੈ ਔਰ ਜਾਣਿਆ ਕਿ ਕਿਸ ਕਿਸਮ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਰਾਈਡਿੰਗ ਹੈ, ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਇਲਾਕਾ ਹੈ ਉਹਦੇ ਕਿਹੜੇ ਮੁੱਦੇ ਰਹੇ, ਔਰ ਖਾਸ ਤੌਰ ਤੇ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਸ਼ੁਰੂਆਤ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਕੀਤੀ, ਜਦ ਕਿ ਮੈਂ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਦੇ ਪੋਲਿਟਿਕਸ ਬਾਰੇ ਪੁੱਛ ਰਿਹਾ ਸੀ, ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਦੱਸਿਆ ਕਿ ਲਿਟਨ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਪਿੰਡ ਹੈ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਪੂਰਾ ਸੜ ਗਿਆ ਸੀ ਉੱਥੇ ਫਾਇਰਸ ਦੇ ਦੌਰਾਨ, ਔਰ ਉਹਦਾ ਦੁੱਖ ਕਿਸ ਤਰੀਕੇ ਨਾਲ, ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਕਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਮੈਂ ਪੈਕੇਜਸ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਉੱਥੇ ਦੇ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਦੇ ਮੁੜ ਵਸੇਵੇ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਉਹ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਆਉਣ ਦੀ ਕੋਸ਼ਿਸ਼ ਕਰ ਰਿਹਾ ਸੀ, ਔਰ ਉੱਥੇ ਇਲੈਕਸ਼ਨ ਅਨਾਊਂਸ ਹੋ ਗਏ। ਸੋ ਇੱਕ ਬੜਾ ਵੱਡਾ ਝਟਕਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਸ਼ਾਇਦ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਪਰਿਵਾਰਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਲੱਗਾ, ਔਰ ਡੈਫੀਨੇਟਲੀ ਜਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਕਿਹਾ, ਅਸੀਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਦੁੱਖ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਸ਼ਾਮਲ ਹਾਂ, ਔਰ ਬਹੁਤ ਸਾਰਾ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਭਾਈਚਾਰਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਉੱਥੇ ਗਿਆ ਵੀ, ਉੱਥੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਮਿਲ ਕੇ ਆਇਆ, ਉੱਥੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਸੇਵਾ ਦੇ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਵੀ ਅੱਗੇ ਹੋਇਆ। ਪਰ ਦੂਸਰੇ ਪਾਸੇ ਨਾਲ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਆਪਣੀ ਪਾਰਟੀ ਦੇ ਪਲੇਟਫਾਰਮ ਦੀ ਵੀ ਗੱਲ ਕੀਤੀ, ਔਰ ਦੱਸਿਆ ਕਿ ਕਿਸ ਤਰੀਕੇ ਨਾਲ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਪਾਰਟੀ ਦਾ ਪਲੇਟਫਾਰਮ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਕੌਂਸਟੀਚੁਐਂਸੀ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਇੰਟੀਗ੍ਰੇਟ ਹੁੰਦਾ, ਔਰ ਕਿਸ ਤਰੀਕੇ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਇਹ ਆਪਣੀ ਪਾਰਟੀ ਦੇ ਪਲੇਟਫਾਰਮ ਨੂੰ ਧਿਆਨ 'ਚ ਰੱਖਦਿਆਂ ਹੋਇਆਂ ਆਪਣੀ ਕੌਂਸਟੀਚੁਐਂਸੀ ਦੇ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਕੰਮ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ ਨੇ। ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਅੱਗੇ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਹੋਏਗੀ ਇਲੈਕਸ਼ਨ ਡਨ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ, ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਲਿਬਰਲ ਪਾਰਟੀ ਤੋਂ ਉਮੀਦਵਾਰ ਸਰੀ ਨਿਊਟਨ ਦੇ ਹਲਕੇ ਤੋਂ ਸੁਖ ਧਾਲੀਵਾਲ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਨੇ ਉਹ ਜੁੜਨਗੇ, ਉਹ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਕਰਨਗੇ ਔਰ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਸਵਾਲਾਂ ਦੇ ਜਵਾਬ ਦੇਣਗੇ। ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਨਾਲ ਸਾਡੀ ਦੁਬਾਰਾ ਤੋਂ ਮੁਲਾਕਾਤ ਹੋਏਗੀ। ਜੁੜੇ ਰਹੋ, ਸੁਣਦੇ ਰਹੋ CKSP 600 AM ਸ਼ੇਰ-ਏ-ਪੰਜਾਬ ਰੇਡੀਓ ਇਲੈਕਸ਼ਨ ਡਨ ਇਸ ਖਾਸ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ।